I'm Nancy with Icon Apprentice, and thanks for joining me again as we continue to write Our Lady of Fatima. I've had some feedback from some of you out there watching my videos, and boy, I really appreciate it. So if anybody has anything constructive to say, or if you have any critique, I'm open to that. One of the things that we talked about was the fact that sometimes my voice drops, and what happens is that when you're in teaching mode, your voice is higher and at a higher volume. And then when I start painting and I start thinking to myself, my voice drops, and I'm having trouble dropping that voice down. So I'll try to make sure that I remember to keep the volume up on myself and keep the volume down on the music. I know the music got a little bit loud, so I had some technical difficulties with this last video, and so I'm hoping I can change all that up. But once again, we're going to be doing this time Flesh 2. We've got our orange flesh, our Flesh 1 down. We're going to be doing Flesh 2 and starting to really define Our Lady of Fatima's face. And so we will go ahead and get started here in a couple of minutes after we say our prayers and ask God and petition Him for the things that we would like to write into our icons today. All right, so here we are. We've got our orange flesh on, the hands and the face. And now we're going to start putting in our Flesh 2. And our Flesh 2 is a yellow color. And we do get that color. If I can, let me see if I can tell you right off the bat what the formula is. It is raw sienna and yellow oxide, and I do use the Josanias. And then Flesh 3, once we get Flesh 2 on and we're happy with that, we want to go just a tiny bit brighter in certain areas. We take the Flesh 2 color and we just add some unbleached titanium to that. Very little amount until we get the brightness that we're looking for, and then we finish up with some enliveners. The enliveners then would be right around the eyes, the mouth, just a few areas on her robe. So let's go ahead and we'll get started with Flesh 2. Again, remember your paint. We're looking for that consistency of milk, creamy milk. We don't want it too thin, but we also don't want it too thick, because we want to be able to vary the amount of paint that we're putting down and not have to overwork that as we go through. If paint's too thick, you have to overwork it a little bit to get it to spread. That can start to cause some lifting. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start on her forehead. Now, when we actually want to cover almost all of this orange color, there's going to be just a little bit of the orange that we're going to want to keep in our final product. So if we come and we look, we're going to see a little bit of an orange, a tiny bit of an orange line right here as we come across the brow right next to the nose. There's going to be some orange that we leave on the eyelid, and there's going to be a little bit of orange right under the eyes where the nose separates. Remember, we talked about how the nose can look like a fish. Here's the tail, here's the body, the head, and then on the edges of her face we're going to leave just a tiny bit, a little bit of orange under here, but we are actually going to put a little very thin coat, because we don't want that bright orange glaring out, but we don't want it to be very thick either, the yellow coat. We don't want this Flesh 2 to totally obliterate that kind of yellow look. So as we come in here, just remember that, and we'll start out here. this is where I am going to stop, and I'm going to leave a little tiny orange line between the sections of my nose. I just want to suggest a distinction there. Hope you can see how I've just distinguished those sections of the nose by leaving a tiny bit of the orange. So as we look at this, we can see how bright this area right under the eyes is going to end up being, and how the rest of this just kind of starts fading into the background. Down on the neck, this center area is very bright. We've left a fairly dark little triangular area right under the chin, and this gets brighter. This gets even brighter. Then we starting to fade out again when we come down to the neckline. This has very little on it, very little orange, very little yellow, and then very, very bright right underneath there. So keep that color copy handy just to refer back to it. With each successive application, I'm going to put down less and less paint in smaller areas until I achieve the brightness level that I want. And once I've shrunk up an area, I can still go back in that area if I feel like I need to, and I can extend the next layer beyond where I shrink that up. So the next time I come into the neck, I might only do this area right in here, but then the third coat that I put on, I may extend it past that to get a nice even graduated line of color. If you don't like something like I just did there, I put a little too much bright, just tap my finger in there and pull that up. Oh, see, I'm lifting it. So let it dry. When you've made a mistake, just let it go. Come back in. Now, on the hands, this is where we're going to start putting in fingernails and knuckles. And we're going to be following our color copy here. And you can see on the color copy how she's got fingernails, and then each finger, except for the thumb, is going to have 3 knuckles. And so we're leaving that little tiny orange line again on the hands so that we can see exactly where those knuckles are going to be. Just a suggestion. We just want a suggestion of where that's going to be. So the fingernail right here. leaving a tiny orange line around that fingernail. And then I'm coming down to create that first knuckle. It's kind of at an angle, a little bit. So leave a tiny line. Third knuckle, tiny line, leave the tiniest line. Just don't forget, we are bringing this first very light flesh to that orange. We are bringing that all the way down. We're covering almost everything. We'll start on our second coat. we look at our color copy, she has a darker area on this side than on this side. So what we'll do is when we come in, we lay this down, we'll shrink up on that side. Don't forget to leave the little line. And at this point, if you're not happy with your coverage, before you come back and do the third coat, stop and review what you think you see and what you think you'd like to change. That's where you're going to make the next change. So let's come down, and I think I want to primarily put some bright color right in here. I'm going to wipe off my brush. And I got it just a tiny bit damp, and then I wiped it off. And then I'm just going to pull that color out a little bit right in here. So here's where I'm going to make knuckles. very bright right in here. Very bright coming down. At this point, wipe off your brush and just gently pull this down, not all the way. Okay. And then this area right next to the clothing is very bright. And I'm going to leave just a tiny little line right in there, just to kind of show right here. I just want to show where the wrist is. The next time I come through with the next coat, I'm going to go over that and make it a tiny bit lighter looking, but this time I'm just avoiding that area just so I can start to distinguish some of the folds in the skin. All right, we're ready for coat number 3. And I hope you can see here up above her eyebrows, I left a little area, a little orange area, which corresponds to what we see on our color copy right above the brow here, just a small line. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. I'm just following the color copy. You can make the forehead all one if that's what you want to do. Once again, we're shrinking up. We're not going as far out. Be really bold here. Pull this color out at the top, and then I'm going to come back in. And I'm really going to shrink this up. Remember, leave some shadow against that nose. I'm going to wipe off my brush. And I'm just feathering this out. This is where we're going to start to lay in our shadows on the hand. right next to the fingernail is going to be very bright. Okay. And then when we come in, then we're going to have more shadow here. So we'll come from this side and lay in a highlight. Come from this side and lay in a bright spot. On the thumb, it's kind of going the opposite direction. So here we have on the left our brighter spots. On the thumb, it's the opposite. So and this is a fairly dark area in here. So I'm just feathering that out. I'm not really going to put a whole lot more down in here. These two fingers are going to be a little bit darker than the rest of the hand. So we're going to really shrink this up to almost kind of in the center. And this finger on the outside is opposite. The darkness is going to be over here, so right next to this finger is more light. But we're not doing a whole lot more on this finger because it's further away from this heart. And so the brightness of Mary's heart then is giving us our brightness and our shadows in that direction. So let's go in, once again, let's kind of do our knuckles. Stay away from the inner part of that hand. Come out here, wipe off the brush. And I'm actually not even just barely a hint because this part of the hand is going to be dark.